All right, welcome everybody. Happy New Year, and we're going to call our meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so again, Happy New Year, the beginning of a new decade. Our first item is approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the December 16th, 2019 joint work session with the school committee?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. And is there a motion to approve the December 16th, 2019 regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next, we have our consent agenda. Is there any item that someone would like to remove from the consent agenda?
Yes. Number 2.
Any other removals? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda except for item number 2?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Right, item number 2. A motion to approve, ratify, and confirm a Class F1 alcoholic beverage license for the Contemporary Theater for a fundraising event to be held on December 19th, 2019 at the Towers, subject to state and local regulations.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
The only reason I removed it was just to double check on the date to see if that was a typo, just to see if we wanted to correct it for the record, or if that was a retroactive license.
Is it approve, ratify, and confirm?
It was retroactive. They filed too late to make the last meeting, December 16th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
All right, so that was an approve, ratify, and confirm for an event on the 19th of December. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 10 is a motion to approve the purchase of one Lucas 3 chest compression system for the fire department from Stryker Medical, formerly Physio Control Incorporated, in the amount of $12,549.55, including a trade-in of 2 manual Stryker cots.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Any comments or questions from the council? From the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 11 is a motion to approve the purchase of 3 portable radios and accessories for the fire department from Motorola Solutions Incorporated pursuant to the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement in the total amount of $14,981.64.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This comes out of the capital budget. Seeing no comments or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 12 is a motion to approve the email filtering service replacement project with Zones LLC in the amount of $22,502.45.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I believe this increases our security at the IT level. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 13 is a motion to approve the request from Road Races and Events Incorporated to conduct the annual Ocean State Rhode Island Half Marathon and 5K Road Race to be held on Sunday, October 25th, 2020, from 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., subject to state and local regulations.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on this or questions? Steve, could you come forward? Most of our road races, good evening. Most of our road races, people come forward and they're for kind of a nonprofit or for a cause, but this is a for-profit. Is that correct?
It's my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Steve, so this one's for profit. Do they give anything back to the town at all on any donations, any Anything that is going on in the town as far
Well,
as?
it's not included in the paperwork, not to my understanding, but Karen Zion, she is here tonight if you'd like to have her speak on her behalf. But it's not included in the paperwork.
Okay.
So for any of the detail officers, do they pay for the detail officers?
Yes. And they do pay for the resources at the beach also.
And this is annual, has this been, how many times before has this been?
Yes.
Once or twice?
I believe this is the fourth time.
Fourth time? If Karen would like to come up and answer Rick's question, that would be helpful.
Hi, I'm Karen Zions. I'm the owner of Road Races and Events Incorporated. Thank you. So this will be the 5th year for the race. And we do this in the off-season to minimize the impact to the residents, as well as to bring in revenue to the merchants at a slower time of year. And one of our goals with this race, and any race that we produce, is to encourage our runners to explore the area. Our runners come from all over the country. So we ask them to explore the area, the community, not just the course, and that's why we choose our races very, very carefully. Because this race is a marathon and not just a 5K or a 10K, the runners don't just come for the race, they come for the weekend. So they fill up hotels, restaurants, bed and breakfasts, and they bring some money into the community. Over the past 5 years, we've donated about $30,000 to local groups in town. Some of them are Narragansett High School girls soccer team, Narragansett High School girls lacrosse team, the Bonnet Shores Community Camp, and the Prout High School cross-country team. So we do give money back to the community. We are a for-profit company, as are many other companies in the state that run races in Narragansett. We also donate our leftover food to the Johnny Cake Center, the local church kitchens, and the homeless shelters. Any shirts that are left over, we also donate to nonprofits. While we're not a nonprofit company, we are a certified B Corporation, which means that we meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. So basically, we're people that use our business for a force for good. And our company is woman-owned and operated by myself, and my business partner.
Have you identified a charity that you're thinking about giving back to this year for this race?
Well, what we usually do is we use multiple groups. So we usually have about a dozen groups. So those are we're in the process now of securing groups for our entire season. And we have had interest from all of these groups that I mentioned locally to participate again and again.
So about how many runners do you have, or people that participate? in
Last
this
year we
event?
had close to 750 or 780, I believe. I don't have those figures in front of me, I'm sorry.
And how much does it cost to get into this?
It varies. A half marathon can be $50 and a marathon can be $85. It just depends on the time of year that they sign up.
Don't worry, Rick. I think they'll get you in there for nothing. Get you down that.
Yeah, I wish I could run, Patrick.
In addition to using police and fire, and we also use the fire department too, and pay for details with them as well. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any comments from the council?
I know
Any comments from the public?
We put a moratorium up a couple years ago about any additional, right? So this is one that's been capped under, correct, Steve? There's a moratorium about any additional road races. So this is one existing road race.
That's correct, between May 1st and September 30th.
Okay.
Yes.
Catherine Celebruto, 48 Earls Court. I've had some correspondence with Ms. Zions, and I'm really not clear about exactly how much is given to each of these charities each year. The other side of it is this, that the agreement, and I know it wasn't a formal agreement, was that if we allowed a road race, a for-profit road race in town, the money would go to a Narragansett charity. I don't have the correspondence with me right now, but there were a whole bunch of names mentioned, and and it's always the same spiel. We're going to have police and fire details. They're going to stay at hotels. It's all so vague, though. I mean, I want some specifics. How many races are going to stay at what hotels? How much money are they spending? I mean, these people, they come into town and they have the races in Narragansett because we're a draw. That's the bottom line. And again, this is a for-profit company. As far if it's for multiple sclerosis, cancer, whatever is fine. Or if it's for a race that is actually going to give money to a particular charity. And I'm going to tell you, I have a problem with Gray Matters too, because they rake in about $200,000 a year and they give $10,000 to the Historical Society, and then they write the Narragansett Historical Society road race. These races are an incredible disruption to the town. People complain about them all the time. But again, if there was some specific amount that was going to be given to a particular charity in town, since this race has already run a few times, then okay. But it has to be more specific than what she's saying. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a relatively new race. I know that Steve came up a few years ago. And it is a lot, and there's a lot of conflicts with traffic and things like that, and it is a for-profit situation. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. It's October 25th. We got a pretty good shot at getting some rain. I don't know, it's bringing people in town, helping local business. I don't see what the problem is here. What is, am I missing something?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This isn't a bunch of nudists or something making a race here, is it? I mean,
Well, we'd approve that, right?
yes. Just don't tell my wife.
Like we were saying, this is an established race. It says here this would be the 6th year, so it's happened for 5 years. This would be the 6th. I understand the moratorium, but again, this is one that's already been happening. Late October is really a perfect time to bring people in from out of town. That's when the restaurants and the hotels and the B&Bs need people in town. So I'm definitely for this. And again, we've been doing this. It's not like this is some new idea with this race. So I'm fine with it.
Anyone else?
I just want to ask, Karen, can you let us know tonight that it would go to a Narragansett organization? Would that be possible? Could you make that commitment? If you could come on up. It's whoever you select, because I agree with Patrick and with Jesse. It's a perfect time of year to bring people into town, and they are here for the weekend. They'll spend some money. Our restaurants need it. Our hotel needs it.
Right.
But can you make the commitment to us? I know you're not ready to commit exactly who, but would you say that you will commit to having it be a Narragansett-based recipient?
As in a 503, a 50C13 nonprofit? Or does
it doesn't matter as long as it would be. You mentioned Narragansett High School. You mentioned
yes, because they're definitely committed to. They have asked us to do this race again this year. So if those, if the Narragansett High School is permissible to you, I can definitely guarantee that.
As long as it's for me particularly, as long as it's a Narragansett-based group, we've got some pretty good groups in town. That would be my only thing. Thank you.
Okay.
And again, nobody doesn't want to have the races. It's a matter of there are some organizations in this town that put on races, and they give a substantial amount of money back to the town, a substantial amount, if not all. So if you're doing $40,000 to $100,000 on a road race, I would think that you would be able to give 10, 12, maybe 15% of that money, maybe back to the town where it would be needed, whether it's the sports program or whatever we have going on, and maybe something that, again, Steve may know of something else that we're doing in the town that could use the money, but everybody else does it. It's just that we want the road races to come in. We want more people in the town. We want to support the businesses. I don't know anybody in this town that doesn't want to support our local businesses. And if you don't want to support the local businesses, then shame on you. I support the local businesses. Thank you.
Yes.
Carleen Town, Wood Hill Road. If we're suggesting nonprofits, I'd like to suggest that maybe you donate some of the money to the Friends of the Narragansett Library. They certainly could use it. Thank you.
You may want to hold off on that commitment till after the vote. So you might want to wait till you commit. I don't know, so what are we saying? We're saying that if you're a for-profit entity that wants to hold a race, we're going to provide extortion? Is that what we're saying? I don't know.
When was that said, Patrick? Because
Well,
we look
if
for
you're- if you're-
donations? Because we look for donations?
No, if you're saying if you're a for-profit entity looking to have a road race, you have to donate to a Narragansett charity.
We're
Or a-
asking them as a suggestion.
Okay.
It's
As a
asking.
suggestion.
Well,
Okay.
actually, I wasn't asking. She said that in the past they had done that, so I
Right.
was merely saying, please
Right.
make it a
Okay.
Narragansett, so not extortion, Patrick.
Okay, good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion approved, 4-1. Item number 14 is a motion to approve the request from the National MS Society for their annual Ride the Road charity bike ride to be held on Sunday, June 14th, 2020, subject to state and local regulations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. And any questions for Steve? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 15 is a motion to authorize the funding of $7,712 for a Rhode Island DEM Recreation Development Grant for the renovation of the Anishikapotag Narragansett Native American sculpture and authorize the town manager to sign the agreement subject to review and approval of the town solicitor if awarded.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. So this is, actually, I'm going to turn it over to either Steve or Jim, but this is, we're going to be covering a quarter of the cost, it looks like, associated with the renovation. If there's something either one you want to summarize regarding the Indian, I think it would be great, because this is great that we got this.
So just to back up a little bit, we have not received this grant award yet. This is just a condition upon receiving the grant that we, this was slated for the December 2nd town council meeting that was canceled. So the deadline was right after that. So DEM has allowed us to put this before you for this meeting as a prerequisite to be able to apply for this grant. So we needed town council approval to be able to match this $7,712 to apply for the grant. This is part of our CIP. I do have this money in the CIP for parks improvement. And as you all know, we've been working with the Rec Advisory Board for several months, actually for well over a year. The American Native Indian statue, which is in the park, is we inspect it every single year. We've been maintaining it every year, but it's got to a point where it is in a condition where it needs to be removed from its base and completely renovated because of the weather elements and where it's supported to its base. So we're either going to do a fundraising, we're trying to do fundraising and at the same time apply for this DEM grant. So hopefully we'll be able to get this grant, which we can then use this matching fund to pay for the renovation through ABCOR. ABCOR gave us a price to renovate this, so it has to be removed from the base.
So this prerequisite, we have to, this approval tonight, it would be a quarter of the money coming from your CIP, and then when would we expect generally a response regarding the total grant?
Hopefully sometime in 2020, sometime this spring.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments?
One comment. I've actually seen the town manager, Jim Tierney, pulled over the side of the road just admiring the statue multiple times. That's a true story. So I know I know it means a lot to him and a lot of others in this town. I will say that I believe that we should be doing more than just renovating this sculpture in this town. We should really be honoring and celebrating Native Americans more often in Narragansett. So if there's anyone paying attention tonight, and that's something that you're interested in doing, I'd love to hear from you, whether it's email or a call. But I do think we should be doing a lot more for the Native Americans and the history of them in this area. So.
Yeah, agreed. I did see the town manager's likeness in that statue. I can see him. Kind of. Oh. But yeah, I think Chief Kanacha down the pier needs a once-over too.
Well,
That's what we're talking about.
I don't know if you were able to, if you saw the
Is
agenda.
that the
but
one? Is it the wooden one or the?
The wooden one.
That's the one.
No, this is the one at Sprague, yeah. the
There are
wooden.
74 of these, what they call whispering giants throughout
Yeah.
the country,
Yeah.
and we're honored to have one of these. And as
Right.
as you mentioned, Councilman, they are it's something that it's to our heritage, our culture, and it's something that we should respect. And I think, to all due respect to the maintenance of it, it's something we've been doing. It predates me. We've been maintaining and trying to maintaining it every single year by inspection and staining it. But the elements have gotten to it, so it's penetrated the wood where it needs to come down
Right.
and be thoroughly pre-coated, and the headdress needs to be redressed, and the stainless steel bolts that are bolted to the base have to be replaced, because the next major storm we have, we could lose that. So we're really in a place where we have to do something very quickly. So we've been struggling with what to do with this, because it's a pretty expensive task to take place, and something that we don't have entirely in our budget, but enough to be able to at least match this, hopefully, this grant.
What's the status with Kanacha?
Excuse me?
Chief Kanacha in the pier. What's his status?
That's in good shape.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good.
So that you mentioned it, yesterday I happened to be getting a coffee, and there was a gentleman that I did go to school with, and he is part of the Narragansett Indian tribe. And I did give him my contact information to email me his so I could forward it to the town manager, because they would like to do something in Narragansett, whether it's at that area or another area of town, to recognize the Narragansett Indians. But I felt that we should direct it to the town manager, let Jim be the nucleus of the information, and then he can direct it to where it has to go. So hopefully tomorrow or this week, that gentleman will get back to me, and then Jim can sit with them, and hopefully we can move forward with, recognizing the Narragansett Indians, taking care of this Indian, and moving forward with something of that nature. Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 16 is a motion to approve the donation of land at Assessor's Plat Y-3, lots 176 and 177, and the town council waives all taxes accrued on said loss.
So moved.
Discussion, this item comes, a recommendation from the Land Trust, so I know that two of the Land Trust members I see in the back, so if they
Tom's
want to
here.
speak to this.
My name is Tom Rogers. I'm the chairman of the Land Trust. We received a letter from Ms. Dwyer and Ms. Morrow, the two owners, in October. We looked at it as a land trust. We had the people in the community development did a quick review to see about the buildability, the ability to develop, and also any possible presence of hazardous materials in the past. It was determined that it was clean. They've received a notice that the building lots are unbuildable, and they've donated to the land trust because they can't build on it. Has a tax assessment balance of $226.28 as of December 31st for each lot. And in our November meeting, we took a look at it, and it passes about 6 or 7 of our criteria that we established back in April of 2017, as in it's in the green belt, it's contiguous, it's undeveloped, there's no hazard material, and it's accessible to other conserved properties. So we voted 7-0 to acquire it, and I hope you do too. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Anyone from the public? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. A motion to read, pass, and adopt as a second reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions at Sections 2.2, Definitions, 4.7, Special Flood Hazard Overlay District, and 6.4, Dimensional Regulations.
Second.
This is a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. So for 8 o'clock, we have a public hearing, a decision. So it's going to be a motion to open a public hearing to amend Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions at Section 4.7, Special Flood Hazard Overlay District, to address changes made by FEMA to the flood insurance rate map panels due to an update of the flood insurance study for Washington County, Rhode Island.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. So I'm going to ask from our planning department, Jill Sabo, to come forward for any questions from the for a brief summary and to take any questions from the council.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Welcome.
members.
Thank you.
Jill Sabo with the Planning Department. So I put some information up on the dais for you today to go over to sort of explain this to you. On October 3rd, 2019, actually, let me back up. In 2017, FEMA was looking at doing an updated flood information study of Washington County, of the watersheds in Washington County. So we knew that there would be preliminary maps coming about 2017. October 3rd, 2019, they sent a letter indicating that that flood insurance study was completed for Washington County, and new flood insurance rate maps would be coming for an adoption date of no later than April 3rd, 2020. Just to cut to the chase here, Narragansett is not affected by these changes. They were for riverine only. Narragansett has only coastal or tidal flooding, so there is no riverine flooding. We are updating our panels because we actually share those panels with our neighbors, North and South Kingstown. So if you take a look at real quickly at the little visual I gave you, so you can see the western half of Washington County, all of the panel sizes, and then I blew up just the 4 panels that we're changing. And then if you go to pages 2, you can see Narragansett's highlighted in yellow, and then I went ahead and tried to circle the approximate area where the changes are. So in all 4 of those instances, there are no changes in Narragansett. For reference, the new panel 0114 is in North Kingstown. New panel 0202 is in South Kingstown, as well as 0203 and 0204. The letter also describes letters of map change. So if you did receive the letter in October, you probably saw that it was multiple pages. Letters of map change are when an individual petitions FEMA to have their flood zone changed, a map amendment or a map change. And the letter referred to LOMCs or LOMCs that were included or not included in the panel changes. So did they make the change when they made the revised map? FEMA did not incorporate any LOMC changes for Narragansett. There are no existing letters of map amendment that have been superseded by these changes, and there are no LOMCs in Narragansett that need to be redetermined. So it's pretty straightforward for Narragansett. The panel changes are a requirement from FEMA. In order for the town to have the most updated panel information in our ordinance, should we not comply with this, we will be suspended from the National Flood Insurance Program, which would jeopardize our flood insurance policies in town, and it would also jeopardize our CRS rating, or our community rating system rating of 7, which allows everyone in the special flood hazard area right now, as you know, for a 15% discount on their flood insurance. If there are any questions, I'm available.
Any questions from the council? All right, is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Yes.
Hi, Susan Amoruso, West Bay Drive.
Yeah,
It's not so much, I gotta say,
yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And it's not really a testifying, it's just it would be helpful if there was some kind of a presentation on the screen so that the rest of the people in the audience would have an idea about what these panels are, because we're in the dark. You all have your visuals, we do not. So we're here, but it's hard to grasp it without that. So that's just a comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? All right, so is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. And then we have this as actually our next agenda item ordinance-wise. So before that, we just need a motion to receive and place on file the recommendation of the planning board.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed. Motion approved 5-0. Item number 18 is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions at Section 4.7, Special Flood Hazard Overlay District.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. So procedurally, just for a question really for Terry, we don't need to do anything between the closing of the hearing and the vote on the ordinance, correct? It
That is
flows.
correct.
Yeah, it's a natural flow. Okay. All right, so on that ordinance, the language of the ordinance itself, before I call the vote on that, any other comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Thank you. All right, item number 19 is a motion to approve, ratify, and confirm the mold remediation services performed at the Kinney Avenue Water Storage Tank Water Division Office, completed by Single Source in the amount of $12,713.89.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
I had a question.
wait.
It's
Number
just the-
19? This is
Yeah,
the-
it's just the office that had mold?
Do you want to have,
Water
John,
storage tank, water division office. Does that mean it was just the office only that had the mold, or is it the tank had the mold?
Jim or the engineer?
John.
John.
This is something. Office.
Good evening, council members.
Welcome. How are you?
Was primarily in the office space below the tank and a bit in the storage space, but it's the habitable space below the tank. It's not the tank itself.
Oh, okay. Oh, so is it like a foundation underneath there?
Well, there's, if you familiar with that, obviously, the Kinney tank, it's a fluted column, so
Yeah,
that steel superstructure on the outside, there's an office space under there, and
Oh, okay.
they use it for storage as well.
Oh, okay, all right.
So
That's
that
a big
was-
area. Okay,
All right?
yep.
Any other questions?
All right, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 20 is a motion to authorize the creation of an additional truck driver position in the Department of Public Works and allow Human Resources to advertise for said position to be filled as soon as possible.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
And this was the position that we had approved in budget last year, so it's not another truck driver, just to
Right.
clarify that.
Right, so we've budgeted for this, and the plan was that halfway through the fiscal year that the person would come on because the expectation was that in the wintertime that the workload was when there would be a spike in the increase. And this has been, in terms of increasing positions, this has been a request that has been at the top of the list for several years, DPW being understaffed. Yes, Richard.
I noticed the word additional, and I'll make the same comment I did when we looked at the library situation. This is an additional truck, I guarantee you it is needed, but it's time that we end the unreasonable goodies that we give to our employees. I'm especially referring to the COLA on the pensions. I made the comment about the library person, not because it was a library person, but because we cannot afford to continue on with this massive giveaway to our employees. We must end COLAs as we know it now. A 3% compounded thing is so far out of the market, it's beyond belief. So I will oppose this as I opposed the other situation, because we have promised too much to too many for too long a time, and we continue to be way above market price when we hire employees.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, Catherine.
Catherine Celeberto, 48 Earls Court. I don't have any problem with adding an additional employee. Stanley doesn't want the new person to have a new Silverado, though. We can't afford another Silverado. We've already bought a lot of them. The other thing is this, I'd like to see a woman or a minority get the position, and it's not enough to advertise a job and say we're an equal opportunity employer. You really have to recruit if you want some diversity. And frankly, I go into the town hall, I don't see much diversity, and I see a lot of women in traditionally, women-oriented jobs. And I think we need to start changing that. And a good place to start is the DPW, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Stanley.
Now that she mentioned it, I couldn't help but stand up and say, if we're going to buy a truck, I hope we buy last year's model, like a 2019 new truck, not a brand spanking new one. Get a break. We've got to look for those little cost savings. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We're going to be heading into negotiations with the union of which the new truck driver would be a member of. So we hear what Richard said on that front, and those are going to be starting relatively soon with that union. So any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question for Steve. Sorry.
Good evening.
How you doing? Happy New Year. It was mentioned, I didn't see it here in the summary, but it was mentioned by Council President that you're hiring another truck driver for the winter. I mean, because of the, doing the plowing and.
Yeah, all of our tasks were shorthanded. Everything that we do.
Right. All year round.
It's for year round.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you remember, we put it in, we could have started it on July 1st.
Right.
We chose to
Do
so
January.
that it would
Kick it down the
save,
road.
right, so
Save
it
on
would save
funding.
a little bit of money in that
Right.
fiscal year, because that way you're paying half the salary and benefits for that year.
Correct.
Right, but correct me if I'm wrong, when we introduced the brine system,
Yes.
that was supposed to, lower
That
labor
speeds up
costs.
efficiency, and it's
Right.
actually paid for itself.
Right.
It reduced our salt purchase, so our snow budget's actually lower now. And when we do that, it's on straight time,
Right.
not on overtime, so we're
Right.
saving there too.
Right, so it did save labor costs.
So we are saving
Okay,
costs, yeah.
I just want to make sure
As much as we
that-
can, yes.
All right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 21 is a motion to award the bid for street sweeping disposal and miscellaneous trucking services to the lowest bidder, Rambone Disposal Services, at their bid prices for a one-year period.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
You might as well come up again, Steve.
Yes.
So can you just give a little history? I mean, I was going over just so happened this weekend, I was going over all the trucks in DPW, and I noticed the years and how you guys have structured the purchases, which is great, because now we're purchasing vehicles when we need the vehicles.
Correct.
Because most of the vehicles we have that you're replacing are on the last leg. We don't
Correct.
want to dump a ton of money into them. So the vehicle that we have now is a 2000 and...
It's a 2000, we have a 2002 right now, we have a
Right,
2006
right.
that
So
we're trying to
they're
replace.
old. I mean,
Yes.
they've done their job. They're old. We don't want to put a ton of money in here.
Correct.
Whether we'll get something for them or use them as parts,
Right.
we'll be able to do that. But again, I just wanted to make it a point that, again, we're replacing vehicles that need to be replaced.
Correct.
And this comes out of their budget. It's not
Right.
that we're adding anything additional to the budget that we approved. So I just wanted to set that out
Correct.
there.
We do this bid every year for additional trucking services that we can't handle, or it's so rare that we would need it. This bid is in place for if there's an emergency, we could just call them up.
Right.
If the grader breaks down on the way back from Jerusalem, I
Right.
could call this company with a lowboy, and they could come tow it back. We could, for
Okay.
stuff like that.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion approved 5-0. A motion to approve the proposal from Priscilla Balch and Associates to provide professional survey services required for completion of Phase 3 of the road improvement project in the amount of $70,313.75.
So moved.
Discussion. Right, so this is work to prepare for Phase 3, so I think it's important for us to, as Phase 2 of this winds down, we'll see a little less work being done on roads related to the road bond project, because the permitting and design that's done in between phases, this is what this money is for. So this similarly happened between Phases 1 and 2, so many of you people in town will call or have a question about, well, why doesn't it look like there's a lot going on? And that's because you're in this permitting and preparation phase. Are there any questions or comments? Nope. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Motion 23 is a motion to appoint or reappoint tree wardens for the town of Narragansett pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 2-14-2. So I'll be looking for a motion to reappoint Stephen Daigneault Jr.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. And then is there a motion to appoint Joseph Harvey to the tree board?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 24 is a motion to direct the town clerk to advertise the town council's consideration of any potential increase in the number of authorized liquor licenses in 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. And so Terry, this is just advertising for a potential increase. So if someone comes forward, then you'll bring that to us.
That is correct.
All right. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 25 is a motion to appoint or reappoint an individual to the planning board for a 5-year term to expire on 11/1/2024.
So again, we have Vincent Indeglia is
the incumbent. So is there a motion to reappoint Vincent Indeglia?
I'll move that motion.
I'll second it.
There a second? All right. Discussion.
I think Jesse and I are going to say the same thing. You know, I would like the opportunity to interview everybody. I mean, the planning board, and Vin, nothing against you. You do a great job, but it's planning and zoning are our two most important places in town, and I just think that we really need to rotate people through and interview them. So I think we need to interview.
Yeah, so I'll second that, that idea. During the election, 4 out of 5 of us promised publicly to hold public interviews for zoning and planning board appointments and reappointments. So in light of that, I would be behind scheduling a public interview for this position before we do any voting.
Once again, we did say that we would interview. And for me, it was interview if the position was not being requested for reappointment. This gentleman has served. To just do interviews on people and then reappoint this gentleman to me, I don't know. I think that I feel like I'm insulting those I've interviewed, knowing that I'm not even going to do anything with them. So for me, if it's a reappointment, you've had plenty of time to chat with the person. They've been sitting there. They know the position. I believe this is Vince's last term. I think after this, that's it for him. So if the council's on board, we can move Vince forward. We don't have to do the interviews, but when Vince's position comes up again, it will be a interview process because it will be a vacant spot. So that's how I look at it. Thank you.
I know some of the council members go to the planning and zoning meetings as well, so you can see the individuals actually doing the job, right? And the interviews are designed for new people to kind of see what their philosophy and everything is, but we kind of know, we know what it is on the existing, we know what the philosophy and approach is of our existing members. So, anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Abstain.
Motion approved 3-1 for the appointment of Vin and Deglia. Item number 26 is a motion to approve a one-year contract extension for clothing cleaning services for the police and fire departments with East Winds Dry Cleaner at their quoted prices for a one-year period under the same terms and conditions as the original bid.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 27 is a motion to award the bid for unleaded gasoline, 8-cent increment over oil price daily, and diesel fuel 7 cents over oil price daily to Peterson Oil Services through June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Jim, could you explain to the town really what this means?
We try to lock in the best prices going forward annually. They're monitored closely before we lock them in. It provides a guarantee on what we face going forward.
Yep. Any other questions?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. Neither of these companies are Rhode Island companies. They're not even local companies. We have oil companies in town. I think we all use them. We all know who they are. And I don't understand why we're going out of state to buy oil from an out-of-state oil company when we have local or even Rhode Island-owned companies. I know there's master lists and all that other stuff, but I can't imagine they wouldn't match these prices if you gave them a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 28 is a motion to approve the contract extension for miscellaneous repair and construction for the Water Division, Wastewater Division, and Public Works Department for a one-year period with George Sherman Sand and Gravel Company, Incorporated, at their quoted prices and rates under the same terms and conditions as the previous year.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. If there's no questions for the DPW Director, Stanley.
I just wanted to bring the attention, it says here, under the same terms and conditions as the previous year. So it looks out there in the real world, people are not getting a pay increase. That's what it looks like. We are not as in a fantastic position as everybody might think we are. Here's a company that's not going to increase their pay. Maybe we should take note of that as we look at what should be the increases that we award our employees. Pay careful attention that they are appropriate with the taxpayer input.
So Stanley, you want to give this guy a raise?
Well, no, I don't, but I'm saying this is indicating what's out there.
We can amend it right here.
I want you to be responsible, and know that not everybody is getting a 20% increase or 10% or 3% even, or 2%. Here's a fellow not even giving a 2% raise. He's giving nothing, zero. So this is what's out there, and what happens, I feel, is government feels that they have so much tax dollars and surpluses that they can dump all kinds of money out there. That's what I'm worried about. I want to change that mentality. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else? All right, anyone from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 29 is a motion to unseal the minutes related to real estate items from the following town council executive session meetings on March 14th, 2019, April 1st, 2019, April 8th, 2019, and May 6th, 2019.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Give him a chance to talk.
All right, this item comes from Jesse.
All right. So this item really originates from our November 18th town council meeting. I will start by saying that I have absolutely no issue renewing the Pure Liquor alcoholic beverage license as it was originally worded, with the restrictions that have always been in place. So that would be a no question yes from me on any vote to just renew their license, like has always been the case. My contention here is really the process by which this happened. So just a quick little recap on that. November 18th, 2019, we had a council meeting where we were renewing all liquor licenses in town. Councilor Mannix made an on-the-floor amendment to the liquor license renewal for Pure Liquor. What that means is there was no attached written amendment, no notification that this would be happening. Nobody that I'm aware of on town staff knew that this would be happening. So that's what happened on the 18th. What the amendment did was remove one of two restrictions that were on that license. The two restrictions were, from the original creation of this license, were to limit relocating the license to another location and to restrict the ability to sell or transfer that license to a new owner. My understanding, since I wasn't, on the council when this license was originally created, was that that was done to ensure that that liquor store stayed in the Pier Marketplace with Belmont Market. It was created at this, around the same time as the market was there, and also to really block any chance of getting that license and then just flipping it. So the license was created to add that liquor store there to support that area with Belmont being there. So what happened was this amendment was done on the spot. My opinion is that this was done in a deceptive manner to have this change fly under the radar. Without having something attached to the agenda, any written notification of this, it's hard to understand why this would have happened. At the December 16th meeting, which was the next meeting we had after the one on the 18th because we skipped the first December meeting, I did ask my fellow council members how this happened. What I said was that this was all news to me. It hadn't gone through town staff. I never heard anything from the solicitor about it. And it was just really out of nowhere removing this restriction. I said it was never discussed in executive session. Councilor Mannix replied by saying that what I had just said was a total lie. Repeated, a total lie. Matt says the amendment came from our discussions in executive session. My question is, which session? I have no recollection of this. Councilor Murray has no recollection of this. So what I've done is I've asked the town clerk to look through executive session minutes and provide, in her opinion, or in her experience, which possible executive sessions this could have been discussed. The 4 meetings that she provided to me, well, the minutes from those meetings, are the ones I referenced in this motion. Those are the early meetings where we discussed pure liquor and any slight discussion of any restrictions, whether it was restrictions they wished to have removed, any discussion of restrictions. So that's what these minutes correspond to, those 4 meetings. My opinion is that we never discussed this. A lot of people I've spoken to in town wonder where this came from. One way to clear this up is to unseal those minutes, show when we talked about this, have complete transparency so everyone understands why this restriction was removed, who requested it, when we directed anyone on the council to put it on the agenda. In this case, it wasn't put on the agenda. Where did this come from? I have no information, written or oral, that shows Pure Liquor requesting this specific removal be removed, or this specific restriction be removed from the license. The only restriction that was ever discussed in any way outside of executive session was the ability to relocate to a different location, not to remove the restriction that limits transferring ownership. So what happens is this license can now be sold with the business. So the big question is, where did it come from, and why was this done on the floor, as a motion on the floor, as an amendment on the floor? If anyone follows local, state political news, you may have seen the town council in Woonsocket is currently being sued by the Attorney General of the state for using overly vague language to discuss any topic they chose. So this was an Open Meetings Act violation. You cannot discuss topics or items in executive session that you haven't put as items on the executive session agenda. So if you're going to put real estate, you talk about real estate. If you're going to put collective bargaining, then you talk about collective bargaining. Removing a restriction on a liquor license that allows the licensee to sell the business is not real estate. That's a liquor license. The item should have been about a liquor license. So we have 2 scenarios here. One is this amendment was never discussed by the full council. That's my contention. Second scenario is this amendment was discussed in executive session improperly, since it was never put on the agenda, which would be a potential Open Meetings Act violation. And as we know, Narragansett Town Council was just cited for violating the Open Meetings Act about a month ago. Probably not something that we want to, get ourselves into again. So my motion is to unseal the minutes, let everyone in town see when this was discussed. If it was discussed clearly, then it makes sense, to go ahead and put that to vote. If it wasn't, then there's something, a little odd going on here. So that, I think, pretty much covers it.
I actually have a couple of questions for both Terry and Mark. Terry, could you explain to the town executive session minutes? What is the goal? What are the parameters when you actually write them up for us?
You mean about the content of
the
the
content,
minutes?
correct.
The law requires that the meeting date, place, and time be included, as well as the general discussion, and specifically with executive session minutes, what section of the Open Meetings Act is being cited as the exempted reason for the meeting.
Okay, so it's not a he said, she said, and statements. So we could have discussed things in executive session that don't actually end up in your meeting notes.
Right, similar to the regular meeting minutes as well. It's not a verbatim record.
Okay.
It's a synopsis of the discussion.
Okay. Mark, a couple questions for you. During the time when we have executive sessions, because you were the person key negotiating with Peer Liquors, with the town, the building, you would come in, you would brief us with communications that you had with the legal counsel for Peer Liquors, correct?
Correct. As you know, Pure Liquors has had 2 legal counsels, the Callahans initially, and there was communications from that law firm, and then subsequently they have a new law firm. So any communications I received from the law firms were communicated to the town council.
And many of these communications were letter of intents from these law firms to the town, which would include the parameters of the sale, including additional provisions.
Yeah, I think initially they had tendered a letter of intent, and then we had made a counteroffer, and it went back and forth. And all of that was in writing.
All right. Did they ever, in any of these letters of intent, include the provision, an additional provision, so something that would not be included in a traditional purchase and sale, that they were requesting that we lift that restriction so they could actually transfer the liquor license?
Well, the minutes are sealed, so I don't know what I should be discussing, but that was absolutely in the initial letter of intent, and I believe it was a part of every subsequent counteroffer.
Okay. So we did talk about it in executive session, maybe just to make Terry's notes. Terry, one last question for you. There are 4 liquor stores in town. Do the other 3 have the ability to transfer their license to another purchaser should they choose?
Yes, they do, with a public hearing.
So we would just be giving Peer Liquor the same right and ability to transfer their business license to another person?
Well, I can't speak specific to that one, but to the other 3 liquor licenses, there are no restrictions on
Okay.
them in terms of ownership or location.
Okay.
Other than as established in state law with regard to population size.
Okay, thank you.
Let's also remind the public that we're in a lawsuit involving that whole complex. People from the town have put a lawsuit out. So for me, until we get the decision, I don't think anything should be discussed. Anything should be opened. The judge has it in his hands. He'll make a decision. Then from there, we move forward, whatever direction it is.
Well, I agree with you, Ricky. Maybe we shouldn't be amending previously agreed conditions on licenses during this legal status. I have a question for Mark. Does that amendment that either was or was not discussed during executive session that was approved, it slipped past me. I looked at it real quick. It didn't seem like to be a big deal. It's kind of in line with the other liquor stores. But because we're in the urban renewal zone, did it specifically, that amendment, relieve us of that zone requirements of, because we have more control over the UR district zone, correct? So did that relieve us of the UR zone parameters?
Well, I think you have the right to impose that limitation on any liquor license, whether it's in or outside the zone. So the zone does afford the town council a little more flexibility because it sits in part as the zoning board on that particular area. But you have the authority outside of that district as well. So I don't see any unique question with regard to authorization there as it pertains to the liquor license.
Yeah, I didn't think of it at the time, and I don't remember it in executive session, to tell you the truth, but it is a unique property, now owned by the town. We sell them the upper level, then weeks later, we give them the ability to sell the business and move on. So I think the only one that's going to make out here is the liquor store.
And the timing is really the core thing here. Why now? After this license has been in existence for a decade or more, Why would we change the liquor license now?
I think it's pretty easy. The Pure Liquor is a small business that wants to be able to sell their license. They're asking for it now. Why now? Is because we are asked now. Pretty easy. And I also think the timing is interesting from the last meeting where the president of the I Love My Library came up and requested essentially for you to open up the meeting notes or gave the suggestion that the more transparency is needed. We are still, as Rick mentioned, and Patrick concurred, we're waiting for here a judgment for next Friday. But, you know, it's interesting that the president would want to come up and try to make this become more transparent. Why would the town want to entertain anything while we're still in a lawsuit?
Yeah, exactly. Why would we change a liquor license when we're in a lawsuit?
I think maybe
Because it's what we agreed to do in the executive.
Except there's nothing in writing. There's nothing in writing that ever asks for that. Nothing was ever
Jesse,
presented.
you're wrong. Why don't
Well,
you speak to Mark after
you can
after
unseal the
meeting?
minutes and see if there's anything there. And with those, you can unseal documents that go with it. The deal is done, right? The PNS is signed. So isn't the executive session basically put in place because you don't want to have this stuff public while you're negotiating? That deal is signed. If you're nervous that there's something in executive session that you don't want put out because there's a lawsuit, then what are we hiding? What's being discussed in executive session that would affect the lawsuit?
I'm
Is
not
it the
nervous
lawsuit
about
about
anything.
something being done improperly?
I'm not nervous about anything, Jesse. I think that there are times that executive session notes should be made public. I just don't see it's here. And if you will take a look at your laptop or whatever, take a look at memos that have been sent to you by the town solicitor, take a look at that. I think you're going to see that we did discuss this.
I did do that. And I
haven't done it thoroughly then because there are some information in there. I don't know who you're looking to in the audience for but it's been discussed.
I have, like I said, the only restriction I've ever seen requested to be removed, and this was not in executive session, was the ability to relocate. That's why I brought this up, because, like I said, this request, this amendment, for me, was out of nowhere, and that's why I brought it up. And I will say, and again, this has no reflection on the clerk in any way, but when we're talking about minutes, and you're talking about it being a synopsis, we did have an item on the agenda months ago that would allow the town council to have the ability to record all minutes from executive session. If we had that, there would be no confusion or, nuance that's missing. It would be right there. We would know exactly what was discussed. So what we have now is a meeting done in private that is not captured fully 100% accurately by minutes. It can't be done by a human. That will never, ever, ever come out. The things that are discussed there will disappear with only the people that were in there. Those notes, those contents will die with the members that were in that meeting. So we could have changed that by recording minutes, but we voted 3-2 not to do that.
Well, you two don't pay attention during the executive session.
Yeah,
That's it. There we go.
There it is. There it is.
That's the reason.
Matt, I do agree with you.
So I say one thing, and then we get the jeering and the booing.
Yeah.
We see this booing and jeering. It's fascinating to watch. It's so predictable. Do I get to talk, everyone?
Sure.
Because we discussed this in executive session. Because you two are one-note candidates, one-note performers, you don't listen to the whole conversation that takes place. This was discussed at length. This was something that was put forward as one of their requests. We couldn't put it in the purchase and sales agreement. It's an inappropriate term for purchase and sales agreement. The only time that we could put it forward as a change was when we were amending the liquor licenses. So, but I've been in the executive sessions with you. I've seen that you're not engaged because the mob isn't there to support you. And we see now the way that you behave. And this is the leadership right here. This is the leadership. They want us out of office, right? They've started their election year campaign. It's very clear. So everyone at home, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get this gotcha politics, accusations that are not true. Because I remember vividly the discussions about this, and there were other terms as well. It's also inappropriate for us until the closing, not the purchase and sales agreement, till the closing for us to really be discussing any of this. And that's irresponsible as a council member to put that on. You can vote to not go into the executive session all you want. There are times that I voted over the 7 years to not go into executive sessions on some issues way back in the beginning with Deepwater, for example. But that doesn't mean you get to then come and say you want to unseal the minutes in a game of full gotcha and making accusations that aren't true. So I think you need to stop that, and you need to stop misleading the people that you are supposedly working with. So that's all I have to say
so
about
when we
that.
talk about what's appropriate to discuss, it's a little ironic for you to be, throwing that accusation when you called the Narragansett Times to discuss an executive session topic before it was even on the agenda. So it's obviously a little,
Not true. The editorial in Narragansett Times actually explained in that. The editorial boards explained how that works, that when an item is been public, the agenda was ready to go out, and that is a very common thing, so the public's informed. In fact, over my 7 years, I have always tried my best to communicate clearly with the public. One of the things that all of you are frustrated over is that clarity. I said in the campaign that I thought the deal was bad and it should be repealed. And I still believe that. And the numbers and the CAM fees and the folly of having the liquor store there, I have spoken about this. And instead, what has happened since that campaign, where I honestly put forward a campaign, and I could have lost, right? I knew that there were a lot of people who didn't agree with me in the town. But instead, what's happened is you've pretended as if I didn't say that. You've pretended as if there was like some subterfuge or deception. I said it very clearly, everyone. I said it in the debates. I remember people sighing when I said it. But the bottom line is, I have put forward very directly on major issues in this town over the years that I've been on this council, my positions, and I've been on those issues. I have been clear in my communications. Things where we talk about when we go into an executive session on certain items, there's reasons for going to executive session. Negotiations to purchase or sell property, union negotiations, things of the like. But you just didn't pay attention during the sessions because we discussed it.
So I'll get back to now. I know you want to talk about the last campaign for some reason, but we're talking about this item here now. So can anyone explain why this amendment was not placed in writing on the agenda? If this was discussed and everyone knew this was happening, why was it done on the floor with no warning and with nothing in writing? Is there a reason?
I
for
really
that?
can't answer that question. I mean, we could have included it, but we still could. Everyone's still open to discuss it. We can amend an item the night of the meeting, right? So.
But why?
I
mean, you said that we discussed this at length in multiple executive sessions. Everyone knew what was going on. Why would you not put it in the agenda?
I guess I wish that I had. I mean, it couldn't not vote on it.
It wasn't Matt's agenda item, right? It was Terry's agenda item going through all different liquor licenses. So maybe that's a question to ask Terry.
No, it's not anyone's fault. It's when we go back and look through then what the discussions were with Pure Liquors, right? It's not appropriate for the purchase and sales agreement. It had to be done at that point. Otherwise, we would have had to have delayed the whole process.
Well, I think it was because it wasn't discussed. So that's what I think.
Well, that's what you think, but this is an alternate reality. Now I want everyone at home to know this is an alternate reality. It's not what happened.
Matt,
Your opinion is that we didn't discuss it. That's fine. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. It was discussed.
I actually agree with you, okay? I don't know what I had for lunch. Never mind some executive session that happened months ago, okay? It may or may not have been discussed. I don't remember it.
So you heard tonight, Mark
And I also
Davis.
agree with you. I don't think, what's the sense of having executive sessions if you're going to unseal the minutes? Right. Okay? But under this council's administration of this town over the last year and, 14 months or whatever, it demands to release these minutes to avoid another lawsuit.
It's your allies who are suing the town. It's the people you ran with in the campaign. The Belmont Four, the other two are the people suing the town. Everyone at home needs to realize that. That's who's suing the town. That's who's dividing the town. That's what's going on. All right. Is there any other comments on this?
Just to go back to the statement that Mark said, and I understand that he does not want to get into too much of it because but he did state that in the letter of intent, that there was an additional provision for be able to transfer the license as well as other provisions. So, I mean, this is our town solicitor saying that that was in the letter of intent. And anyone knows that when you're purchasing a building or you're selling a building, letter of intents are there and they're discussed, and he briefed us on this. So
Well,
perhaps you missed it, Jesse.
Perhaps
but
I
was
missed it.
there.
Is the letter
Go
of
back
intent?
and look at your email.
The PNS is public, correct? Purchase and sales is public?
Yes.
And the letter of intent, is that public?
No.
Is there a reason why?
We're still negotiating the condo docs.
Okay, because I was never presented with a letter. I could talk about things that didn't happen, right? This didn't, in my opinion, did not happen in executive session.
What didn't happen?
A presentation of a letter of intent to council members that included the request for that restriction to be removed.
Oh, you're 100% wrong.
Okay.
You're dead
Well-
wrong. And not only did it happen once, it happened several times. We had amended letters of intent.
Yeah, before the PNS.
So, and it was handed out to everyone. It wasn't me just discussing it. So that's just a flat out wrong. That's flat out wrong.
All right, so if that's the case, so that letter of intent with those dates, can we?
I don't know what dates, I don't know the dates of the letters of intent off the top of my head. But I can tell you,
Well, we're talking about it, and it's being talked about publicly, so at this point, just, maybe I'm wrong, and it's so,
I'm
easy to
happy to
just...
show it to you. I mean, you should have it, but if you don't, I'm happy to send it to you.
Okay.
I guess the question is, was the purchase of that upper level by the liquor store contingent upon having the ability to sell the business and move to another location? Or sell the business and have that move to another location?
It's not the location, it was the transferability to another person.
All right, transferability to another person.
Which we did discuss transferability to other location as well. But again, this is totally inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's offer letters, it's a series of offer letters.
Well, it's a public-
And you say you care about Pier Liquors. I mean, you put them through, do you know the legal fees they're probably paying on this? I mean, you're supposed to be for small business, but that's a joke.
Well, Matt, they were going to stay. If the library was there, they were going to stay. If they have got legal problems, it's because of your mismanagement of the town.
Oh, you know what?
No.
Let's not get into another discussion
Right.
about the library staying or not. Let's,
You know what, Matt?
let's
All right,
move-
so-
can we take a vote?
Mark,
Let's take a vote.
letter
There's a
of
motion on the
intent
floor.
was
I'm
purchase and
tired of
sales
this.
agreement.
Let's go.
I don't remember.
Let's move.
Was
All
it
right, all in-
contingent upon, the transfer of the business, or the sale of the business, or the transfer of a location? Any of those three?
Their offer to purchase was contingent on a number of things, one being being able to transfer the license. And I don't think,
Right.
my
And that's not a
understanding
big
was,
deal.
and I never had just direct conversations with them, but my understanding was it wasn't to sell to a third party. They're not young people, and they want to be able to transfer it to their kids or a trust.
Right.
But like I said, they're represented by counsel. I don't talk to them directly. That's what was communicated in writing, and that was shared with everybody.
Like I said, I really don't have a problem with any of this, but the idea that it was kind of rammed through on an amendment, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I think it should have been vetted a little bit more before we voted on it.
Again,
And
it
I'm
was-
sorry I didn't pay attention.
Again, it wasn't Matt's motion, and we do often, when we have things coming through the clerk's office, if there needs to be a change, we amend it on the spot, and that's what we did in this case.
Yeah, but I know, but that's a touchy.
happens.
I know, but it's
All
a
right,
touchy.
let's vote on this. Let's move along.
All in favor?
Public comment, right?
All in favor? All in favor?
No, we're going
All
to
in
the
favor?
public. You have to
No.
go to the public
All
comment.
in favor?
Are you
All
serious?
in favor?
Let them comment.
All in,
Let them comment.
all
Let
in
them
favor? It's already in an appropriate conversation.
Right.
If you don't, all in
You
favor?
want another lawsuit?
All in favor?
Go to the public.
Just
All
let
in
them-
favor?
Matt, just let them comment.
All-
Get,
For the last,
You think
Two and a half
you've been ignored the last year? Really? That's laughable. That's laughable. All in favor?
aye.
I'd like to have these
aye?
people who'd like to speak
Aye.
speak.
Aye.
that's
There you go,
three.
3-2.
All right, let's unseal the minutes.
Is that your vote?
I don't want to unseal anything, to be honest with you. I don't. But you guys continue on to battle about stuff. Jesse, you just bring stuff in to turn it up,
All right, okay, there's the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Rick?
No, I'm abstaining from all of this.
All right, all opposed?
No.
No, motion fails 2-2. All right, we're going to move on to the open forum public comment portion of the meeting. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hey, Matt, before we do that, I wanted to take the opportunity. Jim Tierney, our new town manager, had emailed out our town employees and the town council his thoughts for the new year. Jim, I don't know if you have it in front of you, if you'd like to read it or if you'd like me to read it for you. I just thought it was a great message for the town. New Year 2020 will be upon us in a few hours, and I just want to wish you all a healthy and happy New Year. My resolution for 2020 is to continue to treat our town team and our community with civility, professionalism, courtesy, and respect. I resolve to not listen to the naysayers who are there to use social media to provoke negative and inflammatory dialogue instead of focusing on positive messages that truly affect our community. I resolve to continue to work collaboratively with all of you and get the jobs done. Join me, it's contagious. I agree.
All right, does anyone from the public wish to address the council? Mr. DeStefano.
Thank you. Ted DeStefano, 94 Colonel John Gardner Road. New Year's resolutions for the Narragansett majority. This has been an interesting and challenging year for the Narragansett library lovers. It started when the Grinch team of 3, led by Council President Matt Mannix, convened many secret meetings under the guise of executive session to try to sell the former IGA Belmont building. Fortunately, they were double-teamed by law firms representing the library lovers and the Gilbane interests. What better time for us then to make some resolutions for the new year? 1, save the date. January 17th, there will be a special hearing at the Kent County Courthouse in Warwick, where the anti-library trio, Mannix, Lola, and Lima, will, through our town's attorneys and at our expense, attempt to have the TRO lifted, thus empowering the trio to again put up for sale the proposed new library site at the former IGA building. Show them what we stand for and make your presence known. 2, don't lose faith and don't be discouraged. We will have a new library, and the wishes of the town majority, more than 2/3 of the voters in the last election, will be honored. 3, come to the council meeting so that you can witness firsthand who is pro-education, pro-progress, pro-democracy, pro-children, pro-elderly, pro-town values, and pro-residents of Narragansett. 4, tell your friends that the heroes of the past year and the new year will be the civic-minded Narragansett residents led by 2 outstanding councilmen, Patrick Murray and Jesse Pugh. 5, purchase a Love Your Library sign at the library and display it with pride on your front lawn. This will lift our hopes to the sky for the new library. 6, visit our wonderful library and tell our loyal employees that we have their backs and that we, we are united. Tell 3 friends, 7, tell 3 friends about our new library plans and ask each of them to pass the information on to 3 other people. 8, write letters to the editor of the Narragansett Times and show everyone that our citizens are pro-progress and pro-education. 9, donate to the Friends of the Narragansett Library. 10, on voting day in November, remember to come out in force and vote for library supporters to be on our council, like Jesse Pugh, Patrick Murray, Susan Cicilline Bonanno, and other library supporters to be announced. Finally, to all Narragansett residents, happy holidays and a happy new year.
Stan.
I think I gave you a copy of...
Just name and address.
I'm sorry,
please.
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. I think the last time I gave you an article from the newspaper that Treasurer Magaziner was involved in. It really kind of says that we really can't afford a library bond. You cannot put a bond on it. We can't afford it. Magaziner had this Public Finance Management Board make an analysis of our debt, and it says we can't afford it. So that's one step we can't take. We can't, it would be fiscally irresponsible for you, after knowing that they made a study that says we can't afford the bond, you should not put a bond on the next voter's issue. Shouldn't be there. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't buy it. You can build a library, but I'm saying we have to look for the alternative. There's only one alternative: a voluntary library assessment tax. Everybody that votes for the library, when they come in, we should have the assessor sitting out in the hallway and let them sign up for a $200 a year assessment tax, a voluntary assessment tax, like the sewer assessment. A voluntary assessment tax, $200 a year. That's the alternative, because you would be irresponsible after knowing this. You know it's out here that a professional management board specifically was assigned the job to say, can't Narragansett afford that bond? It says no. So where is the specialist, or where is the contradiction to this? Where's the professional contradiction to this thing put out by General Treasurer Seth Magaziner? And it says here, it's a guide for policymakers in Rhode Island when making decisions in the future. The decision is, we shall not put a bond, a library bond should not be out there. It's anti-taxpayer, anti-resident to put a bond out there. What you do is a voluntary tax assessment. Anybody that wants, anybody wants it, volunteer to chip in $200 for the next 10, 20 years. Very simple. Ends the story. It's the only choice we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Jim Bedell. I live at 30 Sylvan Road in Narragansett. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not part of the discussions that just raised so much sort of energy here, but I'm terrified. My wife and I are terrified. My neighbor and his wife are terrified. Our neighbors in the neighborhood are furious because a corporation has bought 2 lots across the street from my new home. The corporation is building 2 8-bedroom houses on 150 feet of frontage, and that same company built the same structure on Burnside, and they openly advertise on VRBO that the house can accommodate 30 guests. And I know the word family has been kicked around. One of their reviews from one of their tenants thanked them for the good time they had with 22 college friends, not family, not related, who paid by the night to rent the house. So I'm before you because I need your help, and I know you folks probably weren't sitting in those chairs when some of these laws were promulgated, but you're sitting in those chairs now. I sat with, on Friday, you got a readout, sat with a whole conference table full of officials from the North Wing here. Very nice, and the gentlemen were helpful. But I'd like to share kind of my story. Before I moved here 2 years ago, a friend of mine said, hey, you got to worry about Scarborough. They've got a problem with those kids and the parties and everything. So I sat down with the laws, went through all the ordinances, and I sat back and said, oh, I don't have to worry. Narragansett printed the laws for the public to get to, and one law says if you're only renting for less than 4 or less people, you're a bed and breakfast. And I look up on the laws you print and you give to people to see, and it says, one, the owner would have to reside there, and I know that that's a controversy that soon may be adjudicated in Providence and would have a bearing on us here, but these are the laws on the books. This is where a person has to go to decide if they want to move into Narragansett, and to say that they're old laws or the wording is archaic, I spent my family's fortune. And a local broker I sat with said, if that commercial activity is going on across the street, you're going to suffer a material loss of about $100,000. That's me and the neighbor across the street. I'm on a dead end with no cul-de-sac, no turnaround block. 16 bedrooms, one of them is a substandard lot. So 16 bedrooms on 150 feet. And part of the story is, further down the street, a 4-bedroom house, every night there's 8 cars. It's rented for the college kids. Their friends move out of the dorms about the 3rd week, and now there's, double the amount of cars. And when I was told at the meeting on Friday, yes, those laws were put in to protect citizens, and literally I was told, but we're not going to enforce them for reasons of other sort of wordings in there that were archaic. And my answer was, what? I bought my house because of these laws, and now you're telling me you're not going to enforce them? You cashed my tax check. When you cashed my tax check, you made a contract with me. I would imagine I've served on town commissions. I would imagine you folks took an oath. These are the laws you took an oath to enforce. Now, I'm standing in front of you telling you I'm going to suffer an unrepairable financial hit if you don't enforce these laws and keep that commercial, one of whom, the finance guy, is a Connecticut resident, from building 2 motels across the street from me. Literally. The 8 bedrooms in each will be 16 bedrooms. If each person has a guest on a big weekend, you're talking 32 cars on a street with 20-foot wide of pavement. And when I read the ordinance about parking cars, you put 2 cars on that street, no emergency vehicle is getting down that road. My wife's family has a history of strokes. No vehicle is going to get down there, no emergency vehicle, if the parking that would be required for 22 guests in each of those houses is permitted.
Thank you, sir. I know, but I know that you met with the town manager, and we're going to, we need to look at where this is in the planning and
Mr.
zoning.
Manager, I know I'm over, and I do want to sit down because I know it's impolite to stay longer. But there were a couple of things that came out at that meeting Friday, like sending a letter to the prospective builders. You can put an 8-bedroom house in a residential zone, but Narragansett has a law that says if you rent to under 4 people, you have to live there, and if you rent to more than 5 people, it's a boarding house and you need a special use permit. I'd ask you to take a vote right now. Could you ask right now the engineering or the public safety department to do a traffic study on what would happen on that street, the dead end, if that many bedrooms were being occupied fully and had guests? That's something I think you could do right now. You can't change the ordinance. And my problem is, it's going to happen next week. We spoke with the developer. He was ready to break ground next week. Now, I know he's got more permitting to do, and I've been told by several officials, well, it's going to take a long time. There will be hurdles. But no one's putting a roadblock in front of it, and I know that the new Providence ordinance might be adjudicated in a couple of weeks. That's not going to help me. If that permit is signed for them to start building, all the old rules are all that matters. And I'm relying on this. And I have to tell you, not one but several town officials said, well, you're going to have to sue us. I'm going to have to sue my town for not enforcing the laws that they print and give out to the public? That's not right, ladies and gentlemen, and I need help from an undivided council to push this through and even to nudge the powers that be in the North Wing to get those things written, get them to you so you can put them out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, did you want to respond to that? I know that you gave the council a very long briefing afterward, and I just wanted to have you have the ability to respond.
I'd be glad to share that with everybody in this room. Leave a copy for them. They can all have it. But I don't recall in that meeting, I don't recall anyone saying to sue the town. I don't recall that. We did explain the...
Excuse me, sir, it was one at a time. Thank you.
Mr. Marcella did detail the process of filing a complaint and the travel that it takes after, if a building permit is issued, and how one would oppose it and file a complaint, and how it would be heard in the town, and what would the next, if the building permit was upheld by the town, the appeal process was laid out under the existing code of ordinances now. And then we discussed some other potential ordinance changes, and we all agreed that to change this, to put a stop to this type of activity, it would most likely be some zoning changes that would have to be enacted. And Mr. DeLuca is currently looking up some other jurisdictions who may or may not have similar ordinances that we could consider. And then we'll meet with Mr. Marcella and Mark Davis to see the applicability to what we're dealing with.
So this meeting really was a benchmark meeting to be able to have you work through your team here in Town Hall to be able to come back with some solutions and some potential suggestions for changes to zoning.
We had the neighbors involved, the department heads, and the solicitor.
So you're on it.
We are. There's no promise it's going to move quickly, though, because it does involve, it'll be potential zoning changes, which have to be hashed out.
I hope that helps, Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Catherine.
My only remaining question would be, can it happen in time? If the building permit is signed, he's, as Tony said, Santilli, once the permit is signed, he then is under the laws in effect at that time. I'm making a point the laws are already there. I know there's issues about the wording of the laws, but I need the help now, and I'm asking for your help to expedite things at the very, very least and do what you can. It's a residential neighborhood, and this is absolutely a commercial activity. No one that's involved in that project is ever going to live in that house. And when they go to sell it, I've got a white elephant across the street. I won't be able to sell mine.
I understand, and I know we've gone over your time, but I think
Catherine.
Jim's given you his commitment that he's looking into this matter, so he'll be in touch.
Catherine.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I was also at that meeting. I'm not going to, Jim has a separate issue from the issue that the people in the neighborhoods have. There's absolutely no control over the number of people that are being allowed to rent these homes. Mr. Santilli stated he was not going to exercise any control. He stated that he could even consider 22 people a family. Mr. Ferendi said he was going to file a complaint against 33 Burnside, which had 22 people in it not too long ago. And he said he would not take the complaint because, again, he would consider it a family. We have an 8-person fire department. 2 people of those are usually on the rescue. I want to know, is he here, the chief? Can our 8-person fire department possibly save 22 people? Don't think so. All of these additional people coming into these rentals are a strain on town services. And there has to be some control. What has happened is this town did not pursue the 4 unrelated. They did not appeal it in the court. They should have appealed it. We withdrew our appeal because it was in the wrong court, and we didn't pursue it. And now we're stuck with DQ Bellis's decision, which, by the way, it wasn't within his purview to make because constitutional issues have to go before state and federal courts, but because we didn't appeal his decision, it stands. And Mr. Santilli is saying that our ordinance for unrelated is no good, and he's reverting to the 3 unrelated, of course, the 3 which has already been adjudicated as unconstitutional. Therefore, nothing. In other words, no controls are in place, okay? So we brought up the rooming house issue where 5 to 20, you could make people get a special use permit. Mr. Marcella stated that, it says in this ordinance that you have to have a daily register. And gee, I don't know, how are we going to keep a daily register? How about this? Just put a pad on the counter, make people sign in. There was absolutely, I did not see any intent by anybody there to do anything to help the residents who have to deal with these people and these rentals. This is abuse, really. Burnside happens to have a 7-bedroom house, and they realize that they can make more money renting it night to night. $940 a night, okay? This is what they're doing. Night to night, weekends, a week. And this is unacceptable, really, unacceptable. Like I said, it's a strain on services, and our police and fire department can't handle the issues that are definitely going to evolve. And again, there was just obfuscation at this meeting. We can't do anything, the thing's not written right, and a lot of that kind of thing. It was kind of disappointing, frankly. And frankly, and anybody who lives in Eastwood, look in this right now listening to this. I took a ride around last week. There are so many orange stickers. It was unbelievable. And the houses that don't have orange stickers have dumpsters in front of them, because you know what the new owners are doing? They're blocking up the garages and they're adding bedrooms. And they're going online, these realtors, and they're saying, rent to 6 students, rent to 8 students. I've emailed a couple of these realtors, and they say, well, the 4 unrelated was unconstitutional. We can pretty much do whatever we want. And this can't
Thank you,
continue.
Catherine. Thank you, I know, thank you. Anyone else? Mary?
Mary Nato, 10 2nd Street, Narragansett, Rhode Island. I just wanted to note that tonight we had 2 items that I thought we should have public opinion on. One was the reappointment of someone for the planning board, because there was no open discussion in the meeting. So I think we should try to make sure we have open discussion on all our items. And number 29, which was dealing with the real estate, where we had no open discussion on that, because it does seem that there's something. If you buy our building, then we'll give you a change to your liquor license. And so should have been able to have public comment on both those items. And I definitely agree with Jesse, and thank you for trying to unseal the records. And it does seem like quid pro quo that we're having an issue that if you do this to me, I'll give you a special license. Thank you.
And Carlene, did you have your hand up? The man in the back, and then Richard. Okay.
Carlene Town, 240 Wood Hill Road. Those of us who speak at open forum have been admonished over and over again that open forum is not a question and answer period. So I did not expect a responses to my questions at the December 16th Town Council meeting. I do, however, believe that the Town Council answers to the people. So I wonder why they don't respond to people's questions. When I didn't get any answers, I sent emails to all of you and to Mr. Tierney. Now, Jesse and Patrick respond to my emails. Matt has responded once. Jill and Ricky have never responded to my emails. So I wonder how people get answers to their questions. Did the town, please, someone, Jesse, Patrick, Mr. Tierney, somebody answer these questions. Did the town appeal the OLA's decision not to grant a waiver to the town for not level funding the library in this year's budget? If the town did OLAS respond to that request? And if it did, what was its response? How are you going to ensure that the library will be able to remain open and provide the same services it has always provided? Do the math, folks. The $400,000 you budgeted for the library is less than 31% of what its operating budget has been for the last 5 years. How can you lie to the taxpayers and to the state when you submitted your budget with the $181,959 line item contribution for operating costs from OLAS and the state that you were forewarned was not going to be forthcoming if you did not level fund the library? How do you plan to correct this terrible disservice you have done to those who utilize our wonderful library? Anyone, please tell me, answer any one of those questions. Mr. Tierney, you never responded to my email. None of you did.
Jim, can we just give a quick answer on the waiver? It's an easy one.
I did apply for the waiver initially and got a response. I provided those documents to the trustees through their email. I did not do the appeal because the response to us was quite clear that it would be like hitting the same key on the computer when it keeps ringing. It's no need to hit it again. I believe it was page 2 or the second paragraph on page 2 spelled out one criteria that was not going to change, which would have been critical in denying us that waiver.
So you lied in the budget?
No, no one lied in budget. The budget is a plan, and go ahead.
For the record, that
The
all
reason
this was
sometimes there aren't answers is because the questions are loaded. It's not, did you file an appeal and what's the next step in the process? It's like, why are you trying to destroy the library? So it's two very different questions, but yes, sir.
Jim, did you want to add to that? You said for the record. You're good.
I don't think you're a liar. I know if I emailed you, I know.
Name and
you'll get
address.
back to me.
Sorry,
My
name
name's
and
Robert
address.
Holmes.
Yep.
I live in Narragansett. I'm Narragansett. Jesse, what are you doing here anyway? Do you ever govern anything? Everybody I know, local, native, as soon as you start talking, they change the channel. Everybody.
Direct your comments to me.
It's like watching paint dry. You are so boring, and you mean nothing. You're talking about 2016. Do you live with Uncle Win? Because you sound just like him.
Direct to me the question.
Does he live with Uncle Win? I don't know.
I do not live with Uncle Win, whoever that is.
All right.
You talking about Win Hames?
I don't know. That's your uncle, right?
No, it's
Because you
not.
sound just like him. Well, you're his nephew or brother-in-law or something.
Yeah, I thought I lived in South Kingstown.
You live in South Kingstown? What are you doing
Was it
here?
that the rumor last time?
Why are you in Narragansett?
Try to make statements regarding.
So anyway, every time I email Rick, he gets back to me. Matt, I'm sure you would get back to me. But someone told me today that the librarian didn't want the town's life insurance, health insurance. So she got a choice to go out and get her own policy. And it's costing us, the taxpayers, $30,000 a year for her health insurance because she refused the town's. Now, I don't know if it's true. I'm not a liar, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But someone told me that she had that choice. And instead of taking the town's, she went out and cost us $30,000 a year. So we're supposed to level fund the library. We're supposed to hire more librarians, but they only make minimum wage, which is $90,000. So, I mean, where's it going to end? Where's it going to end? And Jesse, what's your agenda? What are you after these people? What is it? And if you're counting all your eggs on Susan Bonanno, she already changed her mind twice. So, I wouldn't buy. You think she's your library savior? I think I don't know. And how much interest have you got from the money that Terrence Murray gave us, or didn't give us? Has he given it to us yet? So why would we thank someone for money that he hasn't given us? And these guys up here, I know Rick Lima, I know a little bit about Matt, and I know a little bit about Jill. They do more for the town than anybody. The blessing of the fleet wouldn't happen without him. The plunge on the beach wouldn't happen without him. The Christmas tree thing up there that he sets up every year, he's a Lions Club. He does more for the town than anyone. Matt Mannix does more for Ponnet Shores. Jill Lawyer does more for the poor people than anybody. What do you guys do? What have you done? Anything. What have you done?
I'm still trying to figure it out, so.
I mean, why don't
Thank
you
you.
sell the library, the laundromat? Let them put it in there. Or the school. Forget that building.
All right, Richard.
Sell it.
Thank you. Richard.
Richard Vankermish, 55 Osceola. I sort of remember a movie, I think it was Marilyn Monroe, and The 7-Year Itch is something I remember. And this is the 7th year. 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is the 7th year of the library, what I call murkiness. It was murky in 2014. That's why the town council did not bring forth the bond issue. And it's gotten even more murky. And this is a new year, and you would hope our first goal is to get this clear and to cut out the vituperation. Vituperation has led us nowhere. So I've got a fifth M, murky, to go along with meditate, moderate, medicate, and most important, mediate. We can do this. We've got to believe we can make this unmurky. All we've done in these 7 years is take a murky situation and make it murkier. Please, let's try the other four, especially mediation.
Yes, Susan.
Susan Amoruso, West Bay Drive. So many things. I just think that, I'm for unsealing all these executive sessions. I feel there's been way too many. Some things are appropriate. I am for a more precise way to report what happens in executive session. I think it would clear a lot of air. It would protect the town from any issue that would come up. I just think that goodwill starts at the top, and I really think that it's been pointed out before that we don't really, people who are supporting, people who come here and speak politely are not a mob. So I think that word should be gotten rid of. I've already said that before. As far as people responding to emails, yes, Matt, you have responded a couple of times to mine, but Jill, never have heard from you, or Ricky Lima, never. And I find that awful for an elected official not to respond, because how are you going to get answers to your questions? I know I'm kind of scattered, but I would like to support the person who talked about this housing thing. I didn't really pay that much attention to it, but there's a very large house in my neighborhood that all of a sudden I'm seeing all these cars, and I'm thinking, it's a B&B, and we are missing an opportunity to tax them, maybe, or something. But when you see 8 to 10 cars pull up to a house and they're different every weekend, I'm hoping that this doesn't happen next to me, because it does change the quality of your life when you buy a single-family home and you anticipate that, yes, they might rent it, but it'll be a yearly rental. These weekend rentals are a problem. And I'm still trying to figure out why we are not focusing on some of the positives in our town, such as, and I've said it before, the library staff did win a contest, a state contest that was a national, publication, and was deemed as the nicest place. So whatever our feelings are about the library, we should be able to acknowledge it and use that as a publicity for the town. Because we love our beach, we love surfers, but we really need to love the staff that works at our library under these conditions. And I'm hoping that something positive will come out of this and we get the library we deserve. Because the libraries are the heart of a town. And so many other people are on the cutting edge of this, and we are missing an opportunity, and we're wasting so much effort and time fighting a library that people voted for, that they were willing to accept it for. We need to focus on that.
Lori and then Patrick.
Lori Kelly, Wildfield Farm Road. So in June of 2018, Pure Liquors contacted the town and asked for permission. They said that they were willing to move and end their lease early. They wanted to move to a new location. I bring that up because, again, Jesse, thank you so much for bringing this issue forward. There were restrictions on Pure Liquors' lease. One was removed, so they get a windfall that they can now sell the building and their liquor business together, something they were never allowed to do, and it was never modified so that they could move to another part of the town, because that is not the agenda of the majority of this town council. The second thing I wanted to say is November 4th, I believe, was the public commentary period on all liquor licenses. And if you look at the minutes, Matt, you go on about how this is the time when the public gets to comment. No one commented, but no one knew you were going to do an amendment on the Pure Liquors license. So it seems to me, if you have a public commentary and then you amend it after that public commentary, we should have been able to speak on that night, which there was no comment from the public and there was no comment from the council at the time either. It's also ironic to me because, Mr. Mannix, you taunted Mr. Pugh and said, why don't you put it on the agenda to unseal the executive session minutes? And so he did, and then, no surprise, you vote it down. So it's just who's wasting whose time. And finally, for all the New Year's resolution and the fine comments, whether it was Mr. Tierney or Jill, your comments, I really think you need to look at yourselves when you're making a discussion on unsealing the minutes and you refuse to let anyone comment publicly on that. The solicitor or the manager, someone should intervene and say the public has the right to speak on this motion, which is we want to express that we think that this should be transparent. If it's not in the minutes, and some people say it was discussed and some people say it wasn't, that's the point of having executive session minutes. If I can't read them, that's fine. Maybe the Attorney General should be looking at them. Thank you.
Patrick Kavanaugh, 109 Winterberry Road. In past meetings, Rick, you had mentioned with OLIS. You said you checked with them, and they said if the library gives us the money back, and then we would give it back to the library, OLIS would consider that fully funded. Pat came back and said, sounds like we're laundering money. The manager, town manager, from what I understand, I would think, he said that he was going to check with OLIS to see if, Ricky, you were right. And I believe they said you were right. Was that check ever given from the library to the town so the town, I'm just following up, so the town could give the money back to the library so the library would be considered under OLIS fully funded? Did that happen? The library did not write a check to the town, correct?
No.
Okay, all right, well, I'm just putting it out there then. If you don't want, if it's not a question and answer, that's fine. Second of all, when people come up and they say that this town is not pro-education, I went to Monsignor Clark for basically the 8th grade, and then I went to Narragansett High School. I graduated in '82. My daughter graduated in Narragansett High School 2011. I've been living in the town forever. I believe the town budget is about $60 million, and we spend about 40 of it or something like that goes to the schools, and we don't even have 1,000 kids in our schools. So we spend about $12,000 to $14,000 per pupil. So I really get aggravated when people keep saying we're not pro-education. We spend a ton of money on educating our children, which I have no problem with. My daughter went through the school system. I went through the school system. With those two things being said, I have more, I know it's not a question and answer, but I'll throw the question out there. There's a lot of towns and cities that have been getting hacked, and then they're being held hostage by the hackers to get their data back. Is Narragansett working with the State Fusion Center and the state police to make sure that we have all our data backed up so that way if the town of Narragansett does get hacked, that we don't have to pay the ransom to get our data back? It's just a question. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. All right, is there anyone else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0.